Alright, so we're going to talk about floating. Now, floating is a pretty complex topic to talk about, but we're going to talk about it anyway because it's very important. You're going to be using it a lot, and you need to know how to use it because that's just part of it. And I'm going to do my best to explain this to you. So, what is a float? Well, a float is a way of positioning and aligning different elements uh, with each other. So I think the best way to explain this to you is to show you. So let's put two paragraphs on here. All right. And we're gonna put some styling on here. But first, what I want to do is just reset everything, because that'll just make everything easier in the long run. Okay. So I'm gonna do a hard reset. Okay. Now we'll style our paragraphs. We're going to make the background color blue. We're going to make the width 200. And we're going to do 15 pixels of padding. And we'll do 10 pixel margin. Alright. So this is good. Let's put this in a div. Alright. Notice nothing changed, because this div doesn't have any styling. We're going to put some styling on it. There we are. Okay. Now, let's say we wanted this paragraph to be on the left side and this paragraph to be on the right side. What we would need to do is float the bottom paragraph right, because this is already on the left. We just want this on the right. So, on this second paragraph, I'm just going to stick some inline styling on here, just to show you a float. So, in order to float it right, we do float right. Okay? Now you can see a problem here. It's not on the same line as this. And you should know that a paragraph is a block element, not an inline element. But we can change a block element to an inline element by changing the way the page displays that element. And we can do that by doing display inline. Now, this is kind of on the same line, but it still doesn't look right. And the problem is, whenever you float something, you always need to clear the float, especially if you have a float inside of some kind of container, such as we have right here. This floated element is inside this div, and you can see the div is not extending all the way down. We're having some page render issues. So there are several different ways to clear your float. Alright? you could either float the containing element one direction or the other. We're going to float it left. Okay? Or you could put in an empty div to clear your float. And this is what most people use. You need to remember this. You need to take notes. Because you're going to run into this problem, and you're going to be pulling your hair out. And you're going to be wondering why something's not working. And it's because you didn't remember that I told you you need to clear your floats. Okay? So to clear this float, the way most people do it, it's div style equals clear both. And then close your div. Alright? Now, I've come across a more elegant way of clearing your float. And this, you'll just have to try and see if this works. Because sometimes it may not work. But if it does, that's great. So instead of putting in this empty div and cluttering up our markup, we're going to do this. We're going to put a style on our containing div, just like we did the other way. But this works better, because it gets the results that we're looking for. We're going to change overflow to hidden. And there we have the results we're looking for. Now, sometimes you'll still have some weird issues. You can see why floating things is kind of finicky, because we have the proper margin around here, but you can see something's wrong with this paragraph. The problem is we're not floating it. We need to float it. Now we want this to stay on the left side, so we're going to float it left. There we go. This is on the left side, and this is on the right side. Now, let's float this left. And now, it's right next to this. Alright? So that is the basics of floating. Now normally, you wouldn't use inline styling. You would assign a class or something and do your floating up here. But this is just an example. Quick and dirty. That's floating. Okay?